Deep in the Montana wilderness, where mist clings to pine needles and every sunrise feels like a secret, Alex Monroe had left the bustle of Seattle for a quieter life. His only companion, a young husky puppy named Sky. But one morning, on a misty dawn trek through the pines like every other day, fate nudged them into something unforgettable. A tiny spotted bundle of fur, barely clinging to life, with eyes not yet open to the world. As the days turned into weeks, the bobcat grew, its instincts sharpening. Could a domestic dog and one of nature's most elusive predators form a bond? What would forge a friendship that defied natural law? This is the story of a fragile life rescued, and an extraordinary bond that dared to challenge the wild. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The morning mist still clung to the forest floor as Alex Monroe trudged along the familiar hiking trail, the crisp Montana air filling his lungs. At 35, Alex had chosen this quiet life in Whitefish, Montana deliberately, trading the constant buzz of his former Seattle existence for the tranquility of woodland living. His decision to move had raised eyebrows among friends and family, but standing here now, surrounded by towering pines and the distant silhouette of Glacier National Park, he felt nothing but certainty. "Come on, Sky," he called, watching as his 6-month-old husky puppy bounded ahead, silver-gray fur catching the early sunlight filtering through the canopy. Sky had been Alex's companion for only 3 months, but the bond between them had formed instantly when Alex first saw those striking blue eyes at the local shelter. The energetic puppy had quickly become Alex's shadow, following him everywhere from his rustic cabin's porch to his small photography studio in town. Photography had always been Alex's passion, but it was wildlife photography that truly captured his heart. His cabin walls were adorned with stunning shots of elk, mountain lions, and bears, creatures that roamed these very woods. Yet it was the everyday moments with Sky that had become his favorite subjects lately. The trail meandered deeper into the forest, and Alex breathed in the earthy scent of pine needles and damp soil. The morning had started as countless others had. Breakfast at dawn, followed by their ritual hike before Alex would head to his studio. But today would prove to be anything but ordinary. Sky suddenly froze mid-stride, his pointed ears perking forward, his tail stiffening. Alex had come to recognize this posture. It was Sky's alertness signal, something the puppy had developed when detecting unusual sounds or movements in their surroundings. "What is it, boy?" Alex asked, slowing his pace. Sky tilted his head, his nose twitching rapidly as he analyzed whatever scent had captured his attention. Then, with surprising gentleness for such an energetic puppy, Sky began pulling toward a dense thicket of huckleberry bushes. Alex followed, curious about what had so thoroughly entranced his companion. As they approached the bushes, he began to hear it too. Faint, barely audible mewling sounds, like the cries of a distressed kitten. "Easy, Sky," Alex murmured, unclipping the leash to allow the puppy more freedom while keeping a watchful eye on him. Sky moved forward with uncharacteristic caution, sniffing intensely at the base of the bushes. Kneeling beside his dog, Alex carefully parted the thick foliage. There, nestled among fallen leaves and twigs, was a tiny ball of spotted fur, no larger than Alex's hand. The creature's eyes were barely open, its small body trembling visibly. "Well, I'll be," Alex whispered, immediately recognizing the distinctive markings of a bobcat kitten. Growing up in Montana, Alex had seen his share of local wildlife, and he knew instantly that this was a young lynx rufus, a species native to these forests, but rarely spotted this close to human settlements. Skye whined softly, his nose just inches from the kitten, who responded with a pitiful mew that tugged at Alex's heartstrings. The puppy looked up at Alex, then back at the kitten, as if asking what they should do. Alex scanned the area carefully, looking for signs of the mother bobcat. Adult females were fiercely protective of their young, and he had no desire to come between a wild mother and her baby. He stepped back, pulling Skye gently away to watch from a distance. 10 minutes passed, then 20, but no adult bobcat appeared. "Something's wrong," Alex murmured, concern growing as the kitten's cries became more desperate. Her mother should have returned by now. With years of wildlife knowledge informing his decision, Alex knew that bobcat kittens this young, he estimated no more than 3 weeks old, couldn't survive alone. The mother might have been killed by a predator, struck by a vehicle on the nearby mountain road, or fallen victim to poachers who occasionally ventured into these protected forests. Making his decision, Alex shrugged off his fleece jacket and approached the bushes again. Skye watched attentively as Alex gently scooped up the trembling kitten, who felt alarmingly cold to the touch, and wrapped her in the warm fabric. "It's okay, little one," he soothed, cradling the small bundle against his chest. The kitten's eyes, not yet fully open, were a cloudy blue, and her spotted coat was matted with dirt and debris. She couldn't have been separated from her mother for more than a day, but in the cool mountain climate, that was long enough to put her at serious risk. "Come on, Skye, we need to get her warm." The walk back to the cabin was quicker. Alex's pace hastened by concern for the fragile life in his arms. Skye seemed to sense the urgency, trotting dutifully beside Alex rather than engaging in his usual exploratory detours. Inside the warmth of his rustic cabin, Alex placed the kitten on a soft towel near the wood stove and quickly retrieved his emergency wildlife care kit. As a certified wildlife rehabilitator, a skill he'd acquired during his years working with a conservation group, Alex kept supplies for just such occasions, though he'd never expected to use them for a bobcat kitten. "Let's see what we're dealing with," he murmured, gently examining the tiny creature while Skye watched with curious eyes from a respectful distance. The kitten was female, underweight, and dehydrated, but showed no signs of injury. Using a small syringe, Alex carefully administered a few drops of a specially formulated milk replacer, which the kitten accepted weakly. As he worked, Alex's mind raced through his options. The nearest wildlife rehabilitation center was over 3 hours away in Missoula. With night approaching and the kitten's condition so fragile, making that journey immediately seemed too risky. "Looks like you're staying with us tonight," he told the kitten, who had fallen into an exhausted sleep after feeding. "We'll get you to proper help tomorrow." That night, Alex slept fitfully on the couch beside the makeshift nest he'd created for the kitten, waking every 2 hours to offer more of the milk replacer. Skye, displaying unusual restraint, curled up on the floor nearby, his eyes rarely leaving the newcomer. Morning brought clearer weather and improved spirits as the kitten accepted her feeding with more enthusiasm. Alex made the call to the Wildlife Center, explaining the situation in detail. "We're at capacity right now with the spring rescue season," explained Dr. Linda Winters, the center's director and an old colleague of Alex's. And honestly, with a kitten that young, transport itself could be stressful enough to compromise her chances. "What are you suggesting?" Alex asked, watching as the kitten batted weakly at his finger. "You're certified, Alex. You've rehabilitated orphaned wildlife before. Linda reminded him. If you're willing, you might be the best option she has right now. I can email you the specialized protocol for Bobcat kittens and check in regularly. Alex glanced at Skye, who was observing the conversation with those intelligent blue eyes, then back at the tiny Bobcat who had already endured so much. All right, he agreed. I'll do it. But I want to be clear. The goal is to rehabilitate her for release, not domestication. Absolutely, Linda confirmed. Wild animals belong in the wild. But she's going to need about 6 months of care before she's ready, and you'll need to minimize human contact as she grows. After ending the call, Alex sat beside the kitten's nest, gently stroking her spotted fur with one finger. Looks like you're staying with us for a while, little one. I guess you need a name. His gaze drifted to the window, where the morning light was brightening the sky. Luna, because I found you in the light of the morning. Skye patted over, sniffing curiously at Luna before looking up at Alex with what seemed like approval. This is going to be interesting, boy, Alex told him. Very interesting indeed. The first weeks with Luna were challenging. Alex converted his rarely used guest room into a makeshift wildlife nursery, carefully following Dr. Winter's protocols. Luna required feeding every few hours, and as she gained strength, she became more alert and active. Skye's initial curiosity about Luna evolved into something resembling protective instinct. He would sit outside the nursery door during feeding times, ears perked forward at Luna's mewling cries. When Alex would emerge, Skye would sniff him thoroughly, seeming to check for Luna's scent. At 3 weeks of care, Luna's eyes had fully opened, revealing striking amber irises that contained all the wildness of her heritage, and her coordination was improving daily. It was time, Alex decided, for carefully supervised introductions between his 2 charges. Easy now, Alex cautioned as he carried Luna, now the size of a domestic kitten, into the living room where Skye waited. The husky, now 7 months old and growing into his paws, sat obediently, though his tail swished with poorly concealed excitement. Luna stiffened in Alex's hands as she spotted Skye, her small body tensing with instinctive caution. Alex carefully placed her on the carpet, positioning himself between the 2 animals. Skye whined softly, stretching his neck to sniff in Luna's direction while maintaining his sitting position. Luna, for her part, arched her back and emitted a tiny hiss that would someday mature into a formidable warning, but now only made her seem more vulnerable. It's okay, Luna, Alex soothed. Skye's a friend. The first introduction lasted only 5 minutes before Luna retreated to the safety of Alex's arms, her small heart racing against his palm. But it was a start. Each day, Alex extended their supervised time together, watching as Luna's initial fear gradually transformed into wary observation. She would watch Skye's playful antics from the security of Alex's lap, her amber eyes tracking the husky's every movement with feline intensity. Skye, displaying remarkable patience for a puppy his age, seemed to understand Luna's apprehension. He would lie a respectful distance away, occasionally rolling onto his back or gently pawing at toys. Non-threatening behaviors that slowly but surely began to intrigue the Bobcat kitten. The breakthrough came during Luna's 6th week with them. Alex was preparing dinner while Skye napped near the wood stove and Luna explored the living room under supervision. A mouse, a common enough visitor to cabins in these woods, darted suddenly from behind the bookshelf. Skye, notoriously timid around rodents since a frightening encounter with a particularly aggressive pack rat, immediately scrambled to his feet with a startled yelp, backing away from the intruder. The mouse, emboldened by Sky's retreat, scurried directly toward the husky. Before Alex could intervene, Luna's instincts flared to life. With surprising speed for her size, she pounced, her tiny paws pinning the mouse with precision that spoke to her wild heritage. A fierce, high-pitched growl emanated from her throat as she subdued the rodent. Alex quickly collected the mouse in a container, planning to release it far from the cabin, but the interaction's impact was already evident. Sky approached Luna cautiously, sniffing her with new appreciation. Luna, still bristling with the excitement of her first successful hunt, allowed the husky closer than ever before. "Well, I'll be," Alex murmured, watching as Sky gently nudged Luna with his nose, and to his amazement, Luna responded by rubbing her head briefly against Sky's muzzle, a tentative gesture of acceptance. That evening marked a turning point. As if the shared experience had broken down some invisible barrier, Luna began to display curiosity about Sky rather than fear. She would follow him at a distance, observing his routines and occasionally mimicking his behaviors, stretching in similar poses or watching attentively when Sky responded to Alex's commands. By Luna's third month with them, the unlikely pair had established a fascinating dynamic. Though still largely independent, as befitted her species, Luna would now willingly approach Sky, sometimes batting playfully at his tail or pouncing near him in invitation to play. Sky, delighted by these overtures, adapted his boisterous puppy play style to accommodate his smaller companion, lying down to let Luna climb over him or gently nosing a toy in her direction. Alex documented their growing friendship through his camera lens, capturing remarkable moments of interspecies connection. He was careful, however, to maintain the rehabilitation protocols, limiting human handling as Luna grew and ensuring she retained her natural wariness of people other than himself. "You're doing remarkably well," Dr. Winters commented during one of her monthly visits to check Luna's progress. The Bobcat, now 4 months old, watched the veterinarian warily from atop a specially constructed climbing shelf. Her physical development is right on track, and importantly, she's retained her wild instincts. "What about her bond with Sky?" Alex asked, watching as the husky sat patiently below Luna's perch, seemingly standing guard. Dr. Winters observed the pair thoughtfully. "It's unusual, certainly, but not unprecedented. There are documented cases of rehabilitated wildlife forming bonds with domestic animals. The concern would be if that bond interferes with her ability to survive independently." "And does it?" "That remains to be seen," the veterinarian replied. "The real test will come when it's time for her soft release." As Luna's release date approached, Alex intensified her preparation. Following rehabilitation protocols, he constructed a spacious outdoor enclosure adjacent to the cabin, where Luna could experience natural weather conditions and practice her hunting skills on the live prey he introduced. Mice, small birds, and even the occasional rabbit, all sourced humanely from wildlife management programs. Sky was permitted supervised visits to this enclosure, and Alex marveled at how their relationship continued to evolve. Luna, now displaying the powerful physique of a juvenile bobcat, would still engage in play sessions with the husky, though these had grown more vigorous as she matured. Sky seemed to understand the difference between Luna's playful swats and her occasional serious warnings when he overstepped, responding appropriately to each. Their most remarkable ritual developed at dusk each evening. Luna would climb to the highest platform in her enclosure, surveying her territory as wild bobcats do. Sky would settle below, as if standing sentry. and together they would watch the sunset in companionable silence. One domesticated, one wild, yet somehow understanding each other. The day that tested their extraordinary bond came unexpectedly, when Luna was nearly 6 months old. It was early afternoon, and Alex had allowed Luna supervised exploration of the fenced yard while he worked nearby, splitting wood for the approaching winter. Skye dozed on the porch, occasionally lifting his head to check on Luna's whereabouts. The sound of splintering wood cracked through the peaceful scene as a large pit bull burst through a weak section of fencing. Alex recognized the dog immediately. Rocky, belonging to Jim Parsons, whose property bordered Alex's. Despite Alex's multiple complaints about Rocky's aggressive behavior and Jim's negligent containment, the situation had never been resolved. Rocky spotted Luna immediately, charging toward the young Bobcat with unmistakable aggression. Luna, though growing into her predatory heritage, was still no match for the powerful dog 3 times her size. Before Alex could cover the distance between them, Skye erupted into action. The husky, usually gentle and playful, transformed in an instant. He launched himself from the porch with a deep, warning bark, unlike anything Alex had heard from him before, placing himself directly between Rocky and Luna. The pit bull hesitated momentarily, surprised by Skye's intervention, then lunged forward. The dogs collided in a blur of snarls and snapping teeth. Alex grabbed a nearby rake and raced toward them, shouting to break up the fight. Luna, rather than fleeing to safety, circled the skirmish with agitated movements. As Rocky gained advantage, pinning Skye momentarily, Luna darted in with surprising courage, using her claws to strike at Rocky's haunches before leaping nimbly away. The distraction was enough for Skye to regain his footing. Together, the husky and Bobcat created a coordinated defense that confused the aggressive pit bull. When Alex finally reached them, brandishing the rake and shouting, Rocky retreated, slinking back through the broken fence. In the fight's aftermath, Alex quickly assessed his animals. Skye had sustained several puncture wounds along his shoulder, while Luna appeared physically unharmed but visibly shaken. "You brave, foolish dog," Alex murmured, carefully examining Skye's injuries. "And you," he added, glancing at Luna, who maintained a watchful distance. "I've never seen anything like that." That evening, as Alex treated Skye's wounds with antibiotic ointment, Luna remained unusually close, periodically approaching to sniff at the husky's bandages before retreating to her customary distance. When night fell and Skye settled onto his bed near the fireplace, Luna surprised Alex by deliberately approaching the injured dog and curling up beside him, their first time sleeping in such proximity. Alex observed this unprecedented development silently, his photographer's eye recognizing the moment's significance. In adversity, the bond between predator and canine had transcended their natural boundaries. His camera captured the image, Skye's silver fur contrasting with Luna's tawny spotted coat as they slept beside one another, their differences momentarily erased in the firelight. The incident accelerated Jim Parsons' decision to move to Arizona for his wife's health, taking Rocky with him. It also crystallized Alex's understanding of the challenge ahead. Luna's release back to the wild, now just weeks away. At 6 months old, Luna had grown into her predatory heritage. Her once clumsy pounces had developed into precisely calculated movements, and her success rate hunting live prey in her enclosure approached that of wild bobcats. Physically, she was ready for independence. Emotionally, Alex worried about the bond she'd formed with Skye, and if he was honest with himself, with him as well. The goal was always release, he reminded himself daily, watching as Luna practiced stalking through the outdoor enclosure, her movements increasingly fluid and confident. Dr. Winters visited for a final assessment, observing Luna's behaviors and examining her physical condition. "She's ready, Alex," the veterinarian confirmed. "Her hunting skills are excellent. She maintains appropriate wariness around humans besides yourself, and she's in peak condition." "And her attachment to Skye?" Alex questioned. Dr. Winters considered thoughtfully. "It's unusual, certainly. But remember, wild bobcats occasionally form temporary alliances with other species when it benefits them. Luna's bond with Skye doesn't appear to have compromised her predatory instincts or self-sufficiency." They selected a release site together, a protected wilderness area about 5 miles from Alex's property, within the natural territory range of female bobcats, but far enough to encourage Luna to establish her own territory rather than returning to the cabin. The evening before the scheduled release, Alex allowed Luna a final supervised visit with Skye in the main cabin. The husky, seeming to sense the significance of the occasion, was unusually subdued, watching Luna's movements with attentive blue eyes. Luna, now sleek and muscular with tufted ears and distinctive facial markings, explored the familiar space with characteristic feline thoroughness. Eventually, she approached Skye, rubbing her head against his muzzle in their customary greeting. The husky responded with a gentle nuzzle, his tail wagging softly. "You two defy everything I thought I knew about wildlife," Alex told them, his voice thick with emotion. "But nature has its way, Luna, and yours is out there." The release day dawned clear and cold, the Montana forest draped in early autumn colors. Alex had decided against bringing Skye, fearing the husky's presence might confuse Luna or make the separation more difficult. Instead, he made the journey alone, carrying Luna in a specialized transport crate lined with familiar bedding from her enclosure. The selected site featured a flowing creek, ample cover, and evidence of the small mammals that would comprise Luna's natural diet. Alex set the crate down in a small clearing, kneeling beside it one last time. "This is your true home," he told Luna, who watched him intently through the crate's grating. "Be wild. Be free. Be who you were meant to be." With practiced movements, he opened the crate door and stepped back, giving Luna space to emerge on her own terms. For several long moments, she remained inside, sniffing the air and surveying her surroundings. Then, with characteristic deliberation, she stepped out into the dappled forest light. Luna paused briefly, looking back at Alex with those intelligent amber eyes that had captured his heart 6 months earlier. She made a soft chirping sound, a vocalization he'd come to recognize as her form of communication, before turning and bounding into the underbrush with fluid grace. Alex remained motionless, watching the spot where she disappeared, feeling both profound loss and deep satisfaction. This was always the goal, he reminded himself. This was the right ending to their story. The walk back to his truck was the loneliest he'd ever experienced. Skye greeted Alex's return with subdued enthusiasm, sniffing his clothing and looking past him as if expecting Luna to appear. The husky's disappointment was palpable when he realized the bobcat wasn't returning, and for days afterward, he would periodically check Luna's empty enclosure or sit watching the forest's edge. "I know, boy," Alex would tell him during these vigils. "I miss her too." Weeks passed. Autumn deepened into winter, bringing the first snow to the Montana forest. Alex busied himself with photography assignments and cabin maintenance, while Sky gradually returned to his usual cheerful demeanor, though he still occasionally paused during their forest walks, alert to sounds that resembled Luna's movements. It was during one such walk, nearly 2 months after Luna's release, that Sky suddenly froze, his ears perked forward, his body quivering with intensity. "What is it?" Alex asked, following the husky's gaze toward a dense stand of pines. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a flicker of movement caught Alex's eye. A tawny, spotted form slipping between the trees. Sky whined, pulling gently at the leash. "Luna," Alex whispered, hardly daring to hope. The bobcat emerged into a patch of sunlight, her coat thicker for the winter season, but her markings unmistakable. She paused at the forest's edge, watching them with alert amber eyes. Alex unclipped Sky's leash. "Go on, boy." The husky approached slowly, respectfully, stopping several feet from Luna. The bobcat remained still, allowing Sky to close the distance. When they were just inches apart, Luna stretched forward, touching her nose briefly to Sky's in a gesture so reminiscent of their cabin days that Alex felt his throat tighten with emotion. For nearly 20 minutes, Luna and Sky engaged in their own form of reunion. Not the boisterous play of their earlier days, but a quiet, dignified acknowledgement of their continuing bond. Luna showed no interest in approaching Alex directly, maintaining the wild wariness that would serve her well, but she accepted his presence as part of her interaction with Sky. When she finally melted back into the forest, Sky watched her go without attempting to follow, seeming to understand the new boundaries of their relationship. "She's doing well," Alex told Sky as they headed home. "She remembered us, but she's living her wild life now. That's exactly as it should be." Over the following months and eventually years, Luna's visits continued. Never predictable, never prolonged, but unmistakably deliberate. Sometimes weeks would pass between sightings. During one particularly harsh winter, nearly 3 months elapsed with no sign of her. But she would always return eventually, appearing at the forest's edge until Sky noticed her presence. As Luna matured into a full-grown bobcat, the signs of her wild success became evident. One memorable spring day, she appeared with 2 spotted kittens trailing cautiously behind her, keeping a significant distance from the cabin but visible enough for Alex to capture the moment with his telephoto lens. Sky, now a dignified adult husky, sat watching from the porch, respecting the new boundaries their relationship required. Alex's photographs of Luna and Sky's unusual friendship eventually became part of a nationally recognized wildlife exhibition titled Wilderness Bonds. The accompanying story of rehabilitation and release helped fund a new, larger wildlife rehabilitation center in Missoula, where Dr. Winters implemented protocols based on Luna's successful reintegration to the wild. On quiet evenings, Alex would often sit on his porch with Sky, watching the forest edge together. Sometimes Luna would be there, a wild sentinel acknowledging their shared history. More often, the trees would stand empty. Luna about her natural business in the wilderness that was her true home. And that, Alex reflected, was the most beautiful outcome he could have hoped for. Not a permanent domestication, but a bridge between worlds that honored both the wild and the gentle, the feral and the familiar, proving that sometimes the most profound connections are those that allow for freedom. "We did good, Sky," he would tell the husky during these contemplative moments. "We loved her enough to let her go, and somehow she loves us enough to sometimes return." In the balance between wildness and connection, they had found something rare and precious, a friendship that transcended species and circumstance, proving that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful conclusions.